If success attends my steps, honor and glory await my name. If defeat, still shall it be said, we died like brave men, and conferred honor, even in death, on the American name. Zebulon Pike.
Zebulon Pike was an American hero, a patriot who lived and died for his country. Thomas Jefferson.
Pikes Peak, America's mountain. Most of us have at least heard of it, if not visited. And with a peak at 14,115 feet above sea level, it's hard to miss. But one man and his team saw it from what is now southeastern Colorado, like several centuries ago, and decided to go have a look. Welcome to Stories from the Midland. I'm Tommy Allen. Today's story is about Zebulon Pike, the man for whom Pikes Peak is named. January 5th, 1779, the Revolutionary War was on, and on that war-torn day, two American heroes were born. One was future naval powerhouse Stephen Decatur, and the other, the subject of today's story, was Zebulon Montgomery Pike. He was born in Lamberton, now Lamington, in Somerset County, New Jersey, to a father he would be named after and Isabella Pike, née Brown. The younger Zebulon would be one of 4 of 8 children born to the elder Zebulon and Isabella who wouldn't die in infancy. So he would have 2 surviving brothers and 1 sister. The elder Zebulon was a Continental Army officer, so the children grew up in and around frontier military posts. Pike followed his father's example and joined the same Army unit in 1799. He was commissioned as an infantry second lieutenant and was promoted to first lieutenant later that same year. He served at a series of northwestern outposts and piloted cargo boats on the Ohio River into the frontier. In 1801, Pike married his cousin, Clarissa Harlow Brown. The couple had 1 child who survived to adulthood and who would eventually marry the son of President William Henry Harrison. In 1805, General James Wilkinson gave him his dream assignment as he was sent to explore the upper Mississippi River. Lieutenant Pike led a 20-man party with instructions to find the river's source, negotiate peace treaties with the Native American tribes, survey and map the region, and demonstrate the legal claim of the United States to the area. Though he ultimately misidentified the Mississippi River's source, he settled issues with the British, surveyed sites for future forts, and purchased land from and created peace with the Native Americans. His expedition lasted 264 days and covered more than 2,000 miles. He returned in 1806 and was almost immediately given orders to prepare for his second journey of exploration, this one heading much further west. On July 15, 1806, Pike and his party of 16 men, many of whom were volunteers from his first expedition, departed St. Louis intending to explore the Arkansas and Red Rivers and to gather intelligence on the adjacent Spanish-held territory. On his way across country, he established diplomatic relationships with the Osage and Pawnee villages before meeting up with the Arkansas River. Following the river westward, he spotted what he described as a small blue cloud on November 15th. It turned out not to be a small cloud, but instead was a massive mountain. Continuing west, he established an outpost near Pueblo before turning northwest with 3 men to climb what he called the Grand Peak, the peak he'd seen from so far away. But Pike's expedition never equipped themselves for serious mountaineering, and they had to settle for viewing the peak from the summit of a lower peak, perhaps the 11,533-foot peak of Mount Rosa to the south. Pike's small crew returned to the main party and continued to explore westward along the Arkansas River. They crossed through modern-day Canyon City and again turned northwest to discover and follow the South Platte into the land that is modern-day Fairplay. They turned southwest and followed the route of today's Highway 285 into Buena Vista, where they rejoined the Arkansas River. They followed the river valley northwest almost all the way to what would become Leadville before turning around and retracing their steps and continuing to follow the river past modern-day Salida and Cotopaxi back into Canyon City's future site. They then proceeded on to what would become West Cliff before crossing the Sangre de Cristo Mountains at Medano Pass into the sand dunes we know today as a national park. By this point, the party was suffering from frostbite and hunger, made worse when Pike decided to have his men cross that mountain range. He eventually made his way into the San Luis Valley and discovered the Rio Grande River, near which he established a small stockade and was then captured by Spanish soldiers from Santa Fe. The Spanish soldiers took Pike south through New Mexico and into Texas. Along the way, Pike gathered a great deal of intelligence on the region's geography, population, and military presence. Pike and his men were eventually released back into the American territory in Louisiana on July 1st, 1807. During his 353-day expedition, he traveled over 3,600 miles, made peace among the Native Americans, found the headwaters of the Arkansas, South Platte, Cottonwood, and Osage rivers, and helped to lay the groundwork for later expansion into Texas. Despite the numerous trials they faced, all but one of the men in Pike's party made it home. And upon his return, Pike found he'd been promoted to captain. In 1808, Pike submitted his findings to Congress. In 1810, he published his journals, which became popular, and they were so popular they found their way into publication in several languages throughout Europe. His maps and writings served to guide subsequent explorers into Colorado and the Southwest. Pike rose through the Army ranks. Soon after the onset of the War of 1812, he achieved the rank of colonel. In 1813, he was promoted to brigadier general and commanded combat troops in the victory of the Battle of York in what is now Toronto, Canada. But he was killed by flying debris when the withdrawing British blew up their ammunition magazine at Fort York. The date was April 27, 1813. Following Pike's battlefield death, he was widely celebrated as the subject of biographies, memorials, statues, paintings, and songs. In Colorado Springs, a statue of Pike was erected in front of the Antlers Hotel in 1901, and a bronze medallion representing him was placed with that of General William Jackson Palmer and Chief Tehama at the Monument Valley Park in 1926. Unfortunately, the statue was made of plaster and was lost to the elements, and the medallion bearing his image was lost with the other two when a flood swept through the Monument Valley Park in 1965. Regardless, cities and counties, land features, military ships and bases, and of course the Colorado Mountain he was the first American to see from so far away have all been named after him. As I wrap up this podcast, I look outside to see a beautiful sunny day. So perhaps I'll put on my hiking boots or go climb onto my mountain bike and go explore Pike National Forest, less than a mile from my doorstep. Thank you for joining me for this episode. This is Tommy Allen wishing you a great day. And if you find yourself on a grand adventure, make sure you take plenty of notes and document your journey. I look forward to having you join me next time for more Stories from the Midland.
My dear Clara, we are now standing on and off the harbour of York, which we shall attack at daylight in the morning. I shall dedicate these last moments to you, my love, and tomorrow throw all other ideas but my country to the winds. As yet, I know not if General Dearborn lands. He has acted honourably so far, and I feel great gratitude to the old gentleman. My sword and pen shall both be exercised to do him honour. I have no new injunction, no new charge to give you, nor one new idea to communicate. Yet, we love to commune with those we love, more especially when we conceive it may be the last time in this world. Should I fall, defend my memory, and only believe had I lived, I would have aspired to deeds worthy of your husband. Remember me with a father's care to our dear daughter, and believe me to be with the warmest sentiments of love and friendship. Your Montgomery. Zebulon Montgomery Pike's final letter to his wife, written the day before his death.
All right. The man for whom the peak is named. Pikes Peak, America's mountain. Most of us have at least heard of it, if not visited. With a peak at Pikes Peak, America's mountain. I really need to learn to recover from my ad-libbing, if I ad-lib. On January 15th, 1806, Pike and his party of 16 men, many of whom were volunteers from his first expedition, departed St. Louis His map... Blah, blah. Hey, still got audio. What's up? That's right.